Woke up to a snowstorm, or some beautiful snow, I should say. Living out in the woods. It's pretty beautiful when it snows like this, and it's not so cold. And I'm about to go inside and tell you guys about something that I really enjoy. It's more of an affordable piece, if you want to call it that. But let's go inside and talk about this integrated amp that I think you guys are really going to enjoy. I'm looking for a little bit of tube sound, but I want solid state drive. I don't want something that costs $5,000. I need something under $3,000. It has to sound sweet, musical, but have impact and drive and body. That sounds like the Heaven 11 Billie Mark II.
Now I've heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. But you don't really care for music, do you?
So the Billie amp is an all-in-one integrated amp with two EC99 tubes powering the preamp, or driving the preamp, I should say. It is sleek. It's made of aluminum. It has a bespoke design. It's made in Canada and designed in Canada. This was originally a Kickstarter project from a while back, quite a few years ago. And it has blossomed into, I believe, now in its third generation, even though it's the Mark II. They had a 1.5 version, I believe, and now this is Mark II. This is a fully functional integrated amp. It comes with a remote. You can stream Bluetooth through it. You can hook up a turntable to it. You can hook up a streamer to it if you want. It has a built-in DAC and digital inputs as well. And it has the power to drive just about any normal speaker, right? Now, the price is under $2,000. It's around $1,900 and some change. But this is an integrated amp that has something unique about it. That's different from all the other amps. Besides the looks and the more compact size, this is not going to kill your back if you have to move it out of the way or move its position. The sound quality of this guy is beautiful. It has that tube bloom and weight because of the preamp. It has that fullness, that beautiful sound that comes from the Class A2 preamp, but it also has the power and drive and kick from the power amp inside. Now, it does use a Class D amplifier, and truth be told, I've heard a lot of Class D amps, and the only one that I thought sounded really good that I could live with was the recent HiFi Rose RA180. That used new GaN-FET technology. It had power, it had dynamics, it had details, but it was $7,000, and it looked like a Swiss Army knife in design. Now, the Billie, I am really digging the sound of. Let's talk about what's changed in the Billie Mark II versus the previous generation. So the differences between the Mark I and Mark II Billie, here they are. The Mark II has a tube lifesaver where it automatically shuts off 30 minutes of silence. This will make sure your tubes are not left on if you forget to turn off the amp. The volume control has been updated with 4 times the resolution of the previous generation, resulting in finer increments. The 30 decibel increase in attenuation means a lower minimum volume. The amplifier board is new. The Mark I used the Ice Power 125 ASX2. The Mark II uses the Ice Power 200 AS2. Output power has increased from 120 watts to 215 watts per channel at 4 ohms, and into 8 ohms went from 60 watts to 120 watts, basically doubling the power of the Mark I. The tube preamp in the Billie is now redesigned in the Mark II version to operate at double the voltage. The new preamp has a similar sound signature to the Mark I while minimizing gain variability from tubes. The headphone amp has been rebuilt. It's been rebuilt around the TIOP-A1622 chip. The Mark II headphone amp has better dynamics and higher gain, 142 milliwatts at 32 ohms. New in the Mark II is a coax input with a sample rate of 192K at 32-bit. There's a Bluetooth input featuring aptX HD encoding, and this module has a better range. The phono stage has upgraded capacitors. It now comes with high gain jumpers for low output moving magnet cartridges in the 2 to 3 millivolt range. New chassis design. The Mark I was made using an off-the-shelf T6061 alloy aluminum profile. The Mark II is machined using a proprietary profile made of aluminum. The alloy has better heat dissipation, thermal conductivity, corrosion resistance, and surface finish. The profile thickness is consistent all the way around, but most importantly, the profile production is subject to our own stricter manufacturing tolerances. The inner chassis and back panel are all made of stainless steel, with the speaker posts spread out horizontally to better accommodate the larger speaker cables and spade connectors. So when the Billie Mark II arrived to the house, I was surprised at the weight. It wasn't that heavy. And I unboxed it, and I was in awe at the quality of the product. There was nothing sloppy about it, from the packaging to the actual unit itself. The all-metal aluminum design, you can get it in silver or black, with the wood knobs, which you can also customize with stone knobs or other types of wood. It just looked so simplistic, so simple. And I said to myself, I told Debbie, I said, I bet this thing's going to sound a little woolly and loose and pleasing and musical, but I bet it's missing out on imaging and the holographic soundstage kind of thing. We hooked it up. I hooked it up to, first, some speakers that go really well with it, the Buchard P300s that I still have around here. These are small, high-quality bookshelves with a base radiator on the back. They're a sealed design, and they're around $1,500 US. They're really beautiful speakers, and the Billie matched up really, really well with them. The Buchards are small, compact, but they pack a punch. They have tremendous bass weight. They have a beautiful, silky mid-range, and a treble that's a little bit on the soft side, but very welcoming and musical. It sounds good. These speakers sound good with just about anything. I had previously run them with the Pass Labs setup, the X250.8 and the XP22, and of course those pieces drove these Buchards without a problem. When I hooked up the Heaven 11 Billie to the P300s, it was like they were a perfect match, right? You have your small bookshelves, you have your small integrated all-in-one, and it was sounding fantastic. I heard the tube character from the Preamp, which is a big, beautiful, full sound coming in, but I also heard, especially with vocals, the smoothest, sweetest mid-range that I've heard in a long time from an amplifier. And I hear this from the Pass Labs, but remember, the Pass Labs separates here are like $25,000. The Billie is under $2,000 and has everything in one package. The mid-range left nothing to be desired. It was beautiful, silky, sweet. The vocals were imaging dead center and a little bit out into the room. The soundstage was fairly wide and very deep. And while the imaging wasn't surgical in placements like you get with $100,000 or $50,000 speakers, the imaging was there. The performers were in the right places, but they were more rounded. They were not as detailed or etched in that space. And what this did was make the music, no matter what I played through it, sound extremely musical, extremely fun. I could get up and dance with Debbie, and sometimes we do. We can sit and revel in the beautiful vocals that surround us. And I was just in awe of what this amp was doing and sounding like. And I said to Debbie, how come this amp is not talked about all over the place? This is the kind of amp that people look for all the time. I get emails all the time. I'm looking for a little bit of tube sound, but I want solid state drive. I don't want something that costs $5,000. I need something under $3,000. It has to sound sweet, musical, but have impact and drive and body. That sounds like the Heaven 11 Billie Mark II. I've been listening to this for over 2 weeks, every single day, sometimes day and night. I'll come back in at night and listen. And I have not wanted to move in my reference gear in its place. The Billie's still here. I've been stretching out my time with it because I don't want to see it go. No matter if I played vocals, where it really excelled with vocals, something like Diana Krall, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, all sounded fabulous through the Billie Mark II. When I put in some dancey electronic music, electronic dance music, EDM, it sounded really full and big, but it wasn't as dynamic as some of the other integrateds I've had through here. For example, the $7,000, more than 3 times the cost Rose RA180 was much more dynamic. It was much more thrilling. It was much more in my face and in the room. But the Heaven 11 Billie, at less than 1/3 the price, was even more musical, was more pleasing, was more romantic, right? It's what you think a two-piece should sound like, but it still has transparency. It still brings those little details out into the room. When I hooked up my reference Fleetwood DeVille's, things got even better. It was more effortless. The sound was bigger. The magic was in the space, and I was definitely hearing that tube character from the preamp. A lot of times when I've tried hybrid integrateds with a tube pre and a solid state, say, amp, they never sounded like what I thought a tube should sound like old school tubes. And while the Billie doesn't sound like old school tubes, it has a mixture of that old school sound, but mixed with a modern, fast, punchy sound that has drive and kick, right? Now, as I sat here over the last 2.5 weeks listening, I said, okay, we got to find the negatives of this because nothing is perfect, right? So what would I want to change, or did I experience any issues at all with the Billie Mark II? One thing is the remote. It does come with a remote, but the remote is small, thin, a little flimsy. It's like an old Apple TV style of remote, the silver ones. I'm used to getting more chunky remotes with little kind of integrateds like these that are like bespoke. I'd like to see a custom remote made for it that's like a slab of metal. I'm sure that would raise the cost of the unit though, so maybe that's not something everybody would want to see. The other thing, I hooked up my Rel S510 subwoofer to the Billie. On this amp, I tried the low-level connections and the high-level connections, and I stuck with the high-level connection with the Billie. It seemed to gel really well. The only thing I noticed is when I turn the volume, or when I turn the Billie off, and you turn it off by turning the volume all the way off to the left, I hear a thump through the subwoofer. So every time I turn it off, a few seconds later, there's a boom, right, coming from the sub. That's really the only negative I found with the Billie. Oh wait, there's one more. There is one more. The thump, which is not a deal breaker for me. I'm sure there's a workaround or not, but it's not anything major. There's just a little thump when you turn it off. The second or third thing is if I'm in here at night listening at low volume, and the amp does pretty well at low volume, depending on the speakers. That's more of a speaker thing. With the DeVille's, it's amazing in low volume. With the Bicards, which are a much harder drive, they need a little volume to really come to life. But I was listening here with the DeVille's, which are 94 dB efficient. And between songs, I did hear a little bit of hiss coming from the speakers that I do not hear with the Past Labs gear. And that's what you pay for when you go up the ladder. With the Billie at under $2,000, you're getting a lot of that stuff that you get in the more expensive amps when it comes to sound. It's just maybe not as detailed, not as transparent, and not as dynamic. But that's to be expected if you're comparing a $25,000 stack against an under $2,000 all-in-one. And the Heaven 11 Billie, in my eyes, is one of the best bargains out there. Put it up there with the Wilsonton R300, another bargain, right? That's a very low wattage amp. The Billie is going to drive almost any speaker you hook up to it, It's under $2,000 and it sounds phenomenal. It sounds musical. It sounds fun. No matter what I played through it, nothing sounded bad. And with that preamp, you're getting that tube flavor injected in. Speaking of the tube preamp, a lot of others with the original Billie has said the preamp is the star of the show here. So I hooked up the PassLabs XA250.8 and I used the Billie as the preamp. Now I previously had the PassLabs XP22 hooked up, which is like a $10,000 preamp. It's just a preamp. And wow, I was blown away. It sounded phenomenal. It sounded so sweet. I heard more of that transparency and bigness from the big pass, but I also heard that tube flavor that the Billie was injecting. I still heard a little noise. No, the Billie preamp is not as quiet as the PassLabs. It's not as refined. It's not as sweet. But again, the Billie is one of those products that if you're looking to get into hi-fi and set up a system, but you don't want to spend thousands and thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, but you want most of that sound. You want a beautiful musical sound that's not going to irritate you. You're not going to think it's lean. You're not going to think it sounds bad. It's going to work with almost anything you play through it. You put something like the Buchard P300s, Buchard S400 Mark IIs, Dynaudio Special 40s, right? Harbeth P3s, or even big speakers. This thing can power just about anything. And you have a beautiful system. Now, I'm not talking about a system that's cheap and cuts corners. I'm talking about a legit hi-fi system. Billie Mark II, Buchard P300s, some cheap speaker cable, Blue Sound Node, you're at about $4,000. And yeah, that's a lot of money, but it's nothing compared to the 20, 30, 40, 50 grand and up that some people get into spending on their systems. I'll tell you, the Heaven 11 Billie and the Buchards, I could put them in my office and just be tickled pink with the results. I could put it in here, and I have been listening in here with the P300s or the reference stuff, and I'm tickled pink with the results. I don't know why this Billie Mark II is not more talked about in forums. I don't know why there's not more people reviewing it. This is a jewel of an amp. I'm going to see if I can scrape together some money to buy this, buy the review unit, and just keep it here as a under $2,000 reference. It's actually an under $2,000 reference that sounds more like a $4,000 integrated amp. All right, just a couple things I forgot to mention. There's a headphone amp here, and I have these Virum 1 headphones. Beautiful headphones. They're planar magnetics. They're made in Ukraine. $350. I've been trying these with various integrated amplifiers, and none of them have driven these as well as the Billie Mark II. It's got a new headphone amp section in it from the prior generation. But this powers these better than the Luxman 595 did, the Mishi X3, and so on. Also, the built-in phono stage is for moving magnet. I did try it. I have a cartridge, an Audiophile Blue, which many out there are familiar with, and the vinyl sounded rich, fluid, sounded really, really, really good. The built-in DAC, if you go through Bluetooth streaming, I will say that using something like a Blue Sound Node streamer sounds better than going Bluetooth, but the built-in DAC is fairly nice as well. It's really, really good. A little better than I expected. Actually, this whole thing is quite a bit better than I expected it to be. Threw me off guard a little bit. The Billie Heaven 11, or I should say the Billie from Heaven 11, is really a beautiful, little, small, light, integrated amplifier. So I hope you enjoyed this review. Take a look at the Heaven 11 Audio Billie. You can see more at heaven11audio.com. I have no affiliation with Heaven 11 or any audio manufacturer. I just like to tell you guys about stuff I get in here that I actually love, stuff that's a bargain, stuff that reaches above and beyond, and the Billie Amp Mark II is one of them. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time. Love you all. Take care.